to the Infrastructure, Bike, and Row Committee meeting for March. If we could just take a moment and stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, next up is the approval of the meeting minutes from the December meeting.
Before you proceed,
Yep.
Chanel, is it recording? Because typically I would get a message that recording is requested. I just want to double check that it is recording.
I have a little red light that says the recording is in progress.
All right, good. I just want to make sure. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Heidi.
No. I'm glad you are checking, Khaled. That is important. Okay. Approval of the meeting minutes from the December meeting. You all have a moment to take a look at them, and then I'd welcome a motion. Can I make the motion even though I don't think I was at this meeting? Is that allowed?
So moved.
Yes, you can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the motion, Brendan. Do I hear a second? Okay, I will. Second. Thank you. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say right. Any abstentions? Okay, meeting minutes are passed. Next up is the annual report. Khaled, take it away.
All right, thank you. Good morning again. So this is the annual report for the first year, which was a huge success. I mean, this is the first time ever that we're doing such a complicated program, and we weren't sure what kind of pitfalls, we're gonna encounter. But overall, I think it went extremely well, especially, with the help of our consultants. So as you recall, last year, April 1st, we put out the call for projects, asking any municipality to submit proposals for their projects to receive funding. And the deadline was end of June of last year. We received 32 projects, and those were working with our consultants, Woolpert and AECOM. The projects were evaluated, rated, scored, and so on. And 2 of these 32 were deemed ineligible because they were not submitted by a township or municipality, rather by a private entity, Nair Development. And so we had a total of 30 eligible projects. And some of these projects, we had to adjust the amount of funding they were requesting, because some of the things they included did not comply with the guidelines, such as, a project may have included funding for property acquisition or for planning and design activities. And all of these are spelled out in the guidelines document that they're not eligible costs. So we had to take these costs out of the requested amount. And relatively speaking, those were very minor adjustments. So overall, we ended up awarding 100% of the eligible requested money for all 30 projects, including the Western Hills Viaduct. For the Western Hills Viaduct, I'm going to mention this because it relates to another point that will come later. Their initial request was 300 million. The project cost, they said it's 330, and they requested 300. We had to adjust that because we knew they had additional funds for that particular project. But overall, it was a huge success. And then we did the signing ceremony where all recipients had to sign the agreement between SORTA and them that they will be receiving this kind of money, and these are the conditions. They have to start within a year, etc., etc. Next slide, please. And the signing ceremony last month was again a huge success. Everybody who was there, just felt extremely happy about the whole event and that the fact that they're receiving millions of dollars. The coverage was great. We had some really great speakers from local speakers as well as from out of town. So that's pretty much the report for last year, and we hope that this year will be even more successful than last year, funding more projects that we did last year. Daryl, is there anything else you need to add to this?
No, other than thank you to our board and everyone involved for this to even be possible. It was a fantastic year. And again, we're looking forward to this year being even bigger.
All right, so.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
This is more, I think, a request for a future meeting. I would love to see some data and visuals at a future meeting of who was funded in the first round, like geographically, maybe, looking at socioeconomic status within the neighborhoods, those types of breakdowns.
Yes. Okay, we could do that.
That really help understand the breadth of and the impact.
Yes.
Awesome.
That's a great idea. Thank you.
Thanks.
So just a map or with further details?
Khaled, we'll talk after the meeting. I completely understand what she's saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great. Yeah, because to your point, Heidi, the great thing about at least the first year was it was 22 different municipalities spreading all over the county. So that was really very, very, very encouraging to all of us.
Yeah, I'm so excited about the level of interest in the first year. I think we're gonna see it only increase. And the fact that, 22 municipalities in Hamilton County were, able to apply is incredible. So that's really exciting. And kudos to the staff for making sure that got out there and that happened.
Thank you.
This is Sarah. I have a newbie question, and I'm sorry I haven't had a chance to read the whole RFP yet. But when we're scoring these projects, is consideration given to projects that incorporate like complete streets or pedestrian safety? I know some of them are just road pavements, but when possible, are we looking at kind of more comprehensive improvements?
Yeah, there is. So improvement to sidewalks and crossings and so on will get additional points for the scoring. Yes.
There is actually a safety a section in the criteria.
Okay, thank you. I'll get to it eventually, but thank you.
It is a big document.
Yeah.
And so I'll keep going, but interrupt me if you have any questions or whatever. Just please feel free to interrupt. So last year, when we developed the guidelines document, we actually built it around the integrating committee guidelines document. So we didn't have to reinvent the wheel from scratch. And it did its purpose. I mean, we modified it quite extensively to tailor it to our needs, because our program is more transit infrastructure. And it seemed it worked fairly well. However, in the guidelines document itself, what the board approved last year is we will continue to make updates to the document on an annual basis, as needed. And whatever changes we make, we have to take back to the board for their approval. So learning from the first year, after we evaluated these 30 projects and so on, there were a few things that we thought, few changes that we thought would enhance the program a bit further. So we worked on that, and this is what we're bringing to you today. Now, what you're seeing here is just the critical changes that were done to the document. There's a lot of editorial things, like, OPWC was replaced with, integrating committee throughout the entire document. The dates, obviously, we modified these to match, this year's program, and so on. But the main cardinal changes are what you're seeing here, just to make it easier to follow. So, for example, and this is something we learned from one of the projects, is they were doing some improvement on a street, but they were not tying it, and even, they were also improving sidewalks, but there was a bus stop that was about maybe like 200-300 feet down the street. They weren't trying to tie to it because it was kind of just outside of their project. So we want to make sure moving forward that any project that's pretty close to a bus stop, that they tie to the bus stop. So we benefit from that and improvement as well. What we ended doing with last year, we didn't leave it alone, like, well, it's not in their scope. Actually, we approached the city. We said, we need you to tie to the bus stop. And actually, we gave them extra money to make sure that it ties to the bus stop. So it's not like we just ignored it. But we thought moving forward, we want to make sure that the burden is on them to accommodate these needs. So that's the first one. We didn't have that in the original language, which is the left column. We added it in this proposed document. The other one, the next one, signal improvement technology, we just made it more broader. It's not just about signal improvements, but it's also about intelligent transportation systems, which includes, for example, signal priority for buses as well as for emergency vehicles, or some other ITS technologies for smart intersections or for detectors and so on. So we just made it a little bit broader so it would cover all of these technologies. The next one, ineligible costs, we just added a few extra bullets just to emphasize, again, what sort of costs are not eligible, just from the experience of last year. So we kind of highlighted that, planning, design, and permitting, these costs are not eligible, insurance premiums, right of entry, and so on. So we just wanted to make sure that we spell these out and be clear. The next one, the local jurisdiction must contribute a minimum of 10%. That remained the same. However, we added the language in red that additional points will be awarded to projects with local funding and higher proportional share of the total project, just to encourage them to provide more local match so that their proposal is more competitive. The next one, which we did not have in year one, and we're adding it for this proposed changes, is impact of project delays on future applications. In any construction project, there will be some delays. The requirement is, and this requirement is not changing, is they have to start construction within a year from when they're awarded the grant. But some construction projects take a year and a half to finish, some takes 5 years to finish, some, whatever that is. And they are giving us that time of length for the completion of that project. But again, it's a construction project, it's going to get delayed. So to minimize that delay, we thought adding this language that if your project gets delayed and the completion of it is delayed, then actually you may be penalized for that. And so if you submit for a new project, we're going to take your performance into consideration. So if you've been delayed on previous projects, we're going to take that into consideration on how we score your future projects. The Other couple, the next 2 points are kind of related, which we did not have in last year's document. We're proposing these changes is for the applicant to disclose any and all funding that they have for that particular project. This ties back to the Western Hills viaduct. That they requested 300 out of the 330, but they seem to have had additional funds, or they were expecting additional funds. So we took that into consideration when we awarded them the 205, knowing how much total they have. So moving forward with other future projects, we want to make sure that all municipalities and townships are aware of this, that you need to disclose everything you have money for that project, so that we're giving you your fair share and we're not dropping some other critical project because of giving you more than what you should get. So we added these two bullets. The next significant change is how we are scoring the criteria. Overall, in terms of the weight and the percentage of each of these criterion remain pretty much the same. We just simplified it. So originally, for example, criterion 1, physical condition, maximum points they would receive is 25. So if it is categorized as in a fairly good condition, it's going to get like 5 points. If it is relatively okay, it's going to get 10 points, and so on. And if it is a failed, if it is at failed level, it's going to get 25 points with a multiplier of 5. And then some other criterion may be scored at 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Another could be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there was different combinations. So we kind of simplified all of that, which is on the right hand side. So all criteria will be based from 0 to 10, and the weights are adjusted to maintain the overall percentages from the original one. So that's the proposed one on the right. So physical condition will get 19%. That's the weight for that criterion, and so on. There were 3 things eliminated from the list of criteria. As you can see, they're kind of scratched in red. The ban, meaning if a facility was, is banned from use because it's in really, really bad shape. Or criterion 11, if that particular jurisdiction has some levies or taxes for that they're what's the word? Can't think of that word. If they're applying fees or levies for that in their area, and improving bus travel time and bus lanes. The reason those were taken out, they weren't very critical, and actually most of those who applied didn't really didn't make a difference, and we don't expect them to make a big difference given the nature of our program. However, instead of taking the ban and the fees and levies completely out of the guidelines, we incorporated them in 2 other areas, which are the next 2 bullets. So the ban is now incorporated in criterion 1, physical condition. So originally, physical condition, the worst condition is failed, for which you would get 25 points. That was modified to being failed or banned. So either of that will give you 25 points. And for the fees, levies, taxes, that's now incorporated in criterion 5, matching funds. So if you have, if you're depending on how much local match you're providing, you'll be scored accordingly. The more local match, the more points you get. But then at the end, if you also have levy or you're charging fees, then an extra point will be awarded to the total for that particular criterion. So those are the cardinal changes to the guidelines document.
That's really, really helpful. I appreciate that you are all thinking about the delays piece. That was something that was very much I was worried about in continuing to fund folks that can't get the project completed. So anybody else on the committee have comments, questions?
This, I love the chart here. It is very helpful in getting a clearer understanding of how the projects are scored. I did have one question though, in regards, I know it doesn't really matter going forward, but the safety, I don't know, seems like that would be something that's scored higher than, I think it's weighted at 6% currently. Could you explain that process?
Yeah, I mean, as I said, the original document was really based on the integrating committee guidelines document. So the criteria that you see was, for the most part, it was taken verbatim from the integrating committee. And the integrating committee has been using, they've had their program for, I think, 34 or 35 years. So working with the integrating committee staff, Eric Beck and Fred Schlemm, we made certain adjustments to the language, but not so much to the scoring, because that seemed to have been working, for them. And when we took a second look after year one, we just looked at what share of each of these criteria was to the total of the scoring, and we kind of tried to maintain that in the new scoring. So the multiplier 3 is now 6, just because of the overall changes to the how we're scoring things. But that didn't seem, from year one experience as well as from the integrating committee history, that didn't seem to be an issue in terms of delivering projects, with high level of safety and so on. But definitely, we will keep monitoring not only that particular criterion, but the others, and make adjustments as need be. And we'll keep that on our radar screen.
And one of the things we also know is physical condition. As you look at the condition of the project prior to us funding it, will also have a really big impact on safety as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions around the changes? Okay. I appreciate the summary doc. I also appreciate you all including the full doc as well. That was helpful. If there are not additional questions, why don't I make a motion to approve the new guidelines for the infrastructure fund? Do I have a second, or are there questions?
I second it.
Thanks, Sonia. So the motion has been moved, or the resolution has been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed say right. Any abstentions? Okay. Chanel, for next week's meeting, let's keep this off the consent agenda. I think it is worth just letting the board look at it and have a little bit of discussion around it.
Okay, will do.
So, but I really appreciate the learning from year one to year two and how you all have applied that. I think that's so incredibly important for making sure that this fund does everything that we want it to. So thank you all for that.
Sure.
Any other New business items. Okay. With that said, I think we can adjourn. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thank you. Just a reminder, the board meeting is virtual next week, so.
Chanel, I declined that because I'm in vacation, but if it's virtual, I can join. Can you resend that to me?
Sure.
Awesome.
Okay, thanks, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Bye.